News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
And then there was free. Former Health Minister Phillipe Couillard is the third candidate to toss his hat into the ring in the race to succeed Jean Charest. Now, leading the Liberal Party is, you might not think is brain surgery, but we have the qualified
kind
guy.
Kind of.
Yeah, is it? So you're a neurosurgeon by trade.
I practiced neurosurgery for 18 years, most of the time here in Montreal, also in Sherbrooke, and also in the Middle East for a few years.
Okay. So is there anything you can do? Could you have like a plan where you performed brain surgery on some of the M&As?
Oh, I would not go there.
Is there a way to make... No, so why do you want to be a leader of the Liberal Party?
Well, I think I still have a contribution to bring to society and to Quebec in particular. I like, of course, I have a deep attachment to the party because of the values it stands for, its long history as far as a change agent in Quebec, and of course my deep belief in the federalism, which I'm very happy to share with everyone. And so that these are the reasons that I'm coming back in the fray, as you say.
So this is an interesting time in Quebec politics to go. Were you to win the Liberal leadership, and you seem to be the front runner right now.
Who knows?
To have a strong federalist against a strong separatist.
But the federalist discourse in Quebec has to become, I think, much more positive. That's why the way I described it when I did my introduction a few days ago, instead of saying, well, we like federalism because we get more money out of it than we put in, or, well, that's the way it is, or that's what our history has brought us to. I say this is a fantastic system where you develop a common space in which you put things in common in the area of democracy, culture, social life. It's a model that the whole world envies. So we should talk about it in a very positive way.
Phillipe Couillard, the man who wants to lead the Quebec Liberal Party, do you notice that there's something very intangible? Is this just my imagination, or is it anecdotal, that since the election of the Parti Québécois, the air has changed in Montreal in terms of linguistic peace, or Anglos and Francos getting along in the way that we're accustomed to?
Well, I think it happened before the election, actually. I could feel it reading the newspapers and talking to my friends in the community. Certain comments have been extremely negatively perceived. I hope this was not the intention. But when you start categorizing people according to their proficiency in French, for example, or how they become a good Quebecer or not so good Quebecer or not a good Quebecer because of that, I object strongly to this type of categorization in our society. For example, I was shocked during the campaign when somebody was asking, I don't remember if it was Pauline Marois or Jean-François Lisée, what evidence there was for the decline of French in Montreal. And the answer was the decline of person whose mother tongue is French.
Right.
I find it's very bad. I don't like at all this way of cutting our society apart.
When moves are made to promote the French language, depending on how it's done, or to promote nationalism or separatism, depending on how it's done, Anglos often perceive it as an attack on them. Well, and maybe it's not always an attack, but sometimes they do. And they feel like they're sort of left out there somewhere. So where does the Liberal Party under Phillipe Couillard, how does it deal with Anglos who feel ignored?
That's an excellent question, a very important question for us to live together in Quebec. So recently I was talking to a friend of mine who is sovereigntist, and I told him, look, when you talk about the nation, doesn't it disturb you that 15% of the people you're talking to actually don't feel included in your definition of the nation? Doesn't that cause a problem to you? And it's obvious that it does. So the conversation has to be done in a very different way. This conversation about Quebec distinctiveness or Quebec's character or whatever has been conducted through the PQ largely among the Francophone majority in Quebec. And we need to hear the voices of the Anglophones and all the other communities. Why? Because I deeply believe, and I know that because I have lots of friends in the community, that the vast majority of Anglophones in Montreal are actually proud to be part of a French-speaking state in North America, which is something very original, very pleasant to live in, and they just want to be told that they are part of it, and they want to be brought to the table so that their voices can be heard.
Do you think that you have this perception because you lived away for so long? I mean, you did in the 90s. You practiced medicine.
I practiced. I went abroad for 4 years in the 90s.
Yeah.
So, of course, when you look at yourself from a distance, it creates a different perspective. But that's only part of my life experience. I've been brought up by my parents and my surroundings in the deep belief in the tolerance, and that's why I stand for.
Okay. The biggest line budget in the Quebec budget is healthcare. You were the former health minister.
Yes.
It's 40%, I think, around that of our budget goes to healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it doesn't seem to work. It's hard to get a doctor.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be efficiently run. How do you fix this?
Well, things
Instead of throwing more money at it.
Well, that's for sure. We are putting a lot of money collectively in healthcare, but it's also not true that nothing works. Some things do work, but
Right.
we have significant issues, as you said, with access to primary care, for example. That's an obvious one, and also the care for our elderly population. That's another obvious element, which both combine to create the problem we have in emergency rooms. I think the next move and the next change that must happen in our healthcare system is the way we pay things, and the way we pay institutions, and the way we pay professionals in order to give them better incentives to work in the interest of the community. For example, the way we fund hospitals historically is to give a historic budget that you just index the following year. Let's say you had $100 million this year, next year you get $102 million, no question asked. So, no, I think we have to move to some form of activity-based funding, being careful not to go into the biases of this formula, but so that the hospitals have actually an interest in seeing more patients and taking better care of them.
Is it possible that Quebecers will ever be not overtaxed to the extent that they are?
We will always have, I think, generous social programs here, therefore a higher level of taxation, but it has to remain reasonable. And as long as people see the correspondence between the amount of taxes they pay and what they get out of the government as services, I think there is a good social consensus that this is all right. But recently, what the PQ has put forward basically went over the top, quite obviously, and you could see the reaction all over the place. So that I think they got a good dose of reality here in their first weeks in office.
It's nice to meet you.
It's nice also to be here.
Good luck.
Thanks, and good morning to all.
Thank you. Phillipe Couillard is running for the leadership of the Quebec Liberal Party. It's 7:16.